decided to hop on the train with the squad. Hey Channing, what's up? What's up? What's squishy? What's squishy? I don't know this dude right here. He tripping.
Knicks fans were probably trying to cover the screen like that guy at the end of last night's game against the Cavs as LeBron made sure they took the L train home. Welcome to SI Now Live. I'm Robin Lundberg. He's Ryan Aselta. LeBron James and company came back from 23 down at MSG with James scoring or assisting on 30 fourth quarter points. Of course, the Cavs needed every bit of it to grab the W. The question is, are they asking too much of LeBron?
I don't think they're asking any more than they usually ask, right? This is a team that's inept on defense. They found themselves in a huge hole, and they flicked the switch. We've seen this time and time again. We've seen it with LeBron do what he did, set his teammates up to perform at their highest level, and that was Kyle Korver last night, obviously, in that fourth quarter. We had 5 threes. LeBron had 7 assists in that fourth quarter. So he did what he usually does. The concern, though, we've talked a lot about this the last 2 years, Robin, the defense, the Cleveland defense, last in defensive efficiency this season. It seems to be getting worse and worse. Last year it was a problem. They recovered. They righted the ship. They obviously went deep into the playoffs to the finals. But this year, dead last. Can they recover? I mean, they're going to count on LeBron, Robin, but can they keep expecting to come back in games with this type of defense?
Well, the answer to the question is yes, they are asking too much of LeBron. But he is always able to answer no matter how much is asked of him. So we're not talking about a normal, human here. We're talking about basically a superhero. He leads the league in minutes this year in his 15th season. And he's the only guy on the team who's able to create for himself or others. Kyle Korver shooting 60% from 3 with LeBron on the floor, just 15% from 3 when LeBron's not on the floor. So he is asked to do everything under this current construction of the Cavaliers because the Knicks are a better team than the Cavs outside of LeBron, and you could say that for most teams in the league. Now, the Cavs could get better. Isaiah Thomas is going to come back. He'll help with that creation. Tristan Thompson is out. They could still make a trade. But when you're talking about what is being asked of somebody at LeBron's stage of his career, I don't think anyone has ever been asked for more. And you're talking about a dude who was locking down Kristaps Porzingis and then hitting a 3 in his face to ice the game.
And that's all after he played bully against Enes Kanter and Frank Ntilikina because of the comments were said. There was some bad blood. Great vibe at the Garden last night, but we didn't even get to that talking about the Cavs. What do you think? Does he have to play that role still? Do you see a guy of his stature, his caliber? Is it necessary for him to get in the face of Frank to start a shoving match with Enes Kanter?
He's a showman, too. I mean, look, when you talk about LeBron James, the basketball player, there's basically nothing you can say. I mean, the complaints are so nitpicky. People will say, oh, he took off for a couple of possessions or he took off for a few quarters. That has to happen in an 82-game season. If you want to say he's sort of passive-aggressive or likes some of the attention, I'm not going to say you're wrong. I just don't think it's a big deal in the grand scheme of things because this Knicks-Cavs matchup got so hyped due to what LeBron said beforehand. At the same time, I'm not mad at Enes Kanter for sticking up for his teammates. I'm not mad at French Frank for, saying, hey, I'm here in the NBA. You're not going to push me around. At the same time, LeBron is trying to get in their head psychologically a little bit.
Yeah, a little passive-aggressive, especially when he got in the face of Frank and then went, he gave the little shrug like he wasn't doing much. Yeah. Exactly. We all saw that. I don't know. My advice to LeBron, play like he played in the fourth quarter and the first half. He'd have a lot easier road, a lot easier workload. Get the 23-point lead and cruise. He'll be just fine.
But back to the original question, I don't know if that's sustainable. I don't know if he can play like he did in the fourth quarter over, what's 82 times 4? Whatever that number is, I don't know if he can do it.
328. Tell me if that's right. I have no idea. All right, we talked a lot about the best team in the NFC in football yesterday. Eagles, Saints, Vikings, Rams. Well, the Panthers may have played themselves into that conversation after last night's blowout win over the Dolphins. Huge night for Cam Newton, who earns our adrenaline performance presented by Toyota. Let's go places. Cam, 21 of 35 for 254 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, and he also rushed for 95 yards, including a 69-yard run. Robin, there hasn't much been talk about the Panthers team this season. Do you think so far we're 10, 11 weeks in here, have we been sleeping on the Panthers?
I think we have been sleeping on the Panthers a little bit because they can play very ugly. The good thing for them is they can win ugly as well. So they're able to scrape out some of those games because they have a very good defense. The problem is the offense hasn't been particularly prolific. But, hearkening back to what we were just saying with LeBron, Cam Newton's probably as close to a LeBron James in the NFL as we have with his ability to do everything out on the field. He is a guy who's a threat to take it 60 yards. He's a guy who's a threat to punch it in on the goal line as a runner. Of course, he's playing quarterback, so he's throwing the ball as well. When he is clicking on all cylinders, the Panthers are definitely a Super Bowl contender.
Yeah, I agree. We have been sleeping on this team. Maybe we got distracted by Cam's idiotic comments earlier in the year and weren't focusing on what was going on the field. They had that bad loss early in the season as well, but they've had a couple big wins. They beat New England. They beat Atlanta so far this season. They got a huge showdown coming up with the Saints. This team's 7-3, a bye week. They get the Jets, could very easily be 8-3 with that showdown for first place in the NFC South with the Saints coming. And, I think we underappreciate this team. Cam can do a little bit of everything. They're going to get healthier. Greg Olsen's going to come back in a couple weeks. There's enough firepower here where we could be talking about this team going deep into the postseason as an NFC contender.
And we've seen them go head-to-head with Philly, and that was a very close game. It went back and forth. Now, we're 10 games into the season. Cam Newton, of course, a former MVP with an MVP-caliber performance last night. Who is your NFL MVP 10 games in?
I'm going to give you my MVP now, and I don't think he'll be there at the end of the year, and that's Carson Wentz. Obviously, the best team in football record-wise is the Philadelphia Eagles at 8-1. I think Wentz, when you talk about his competition for this award, Tom Brady, maybe Russell Wilson, Alex Smith, I think Wentz is doing the most with less on his team right now. A younger guy, still learning the position, still learning the ropes in the NFL. 23 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. That's very, very impressive. He's the third-rated quarterback in the National Football League. He's also 6th in rushing with quarterbacks. So similar to Cam, what we talked about, the dual threat. Now, I don't think he'll be there at the end of the year. I think Russell Wilson is the one who's peaking right now, could take that Seahawks team to a higher level. But right now, Wentz is my MVP.
Yeah, I'm going to answer this in 2 boring ways. Starting by saying a quarterback, it's very cliche, but when you see how bad some of the quarterback play is, it does make the great quarterback play stand out. And the answer there would be Tom Brady.
It's all cliches, Robin. Tom Brady MVP. Cliche.
I mean, well, is he the most valuable player or not? He's got the most passing yards. He's got 19 touchdowns to just 2 interceptions. The Patriots are right where we thought they'd be at the top of the AFC East. Again, rename that division Patriots and Friends at this point. If there are other competition for the award, I agree with you on Russell Wilson, and I'd throw Cam in there as well if he keeps this up, because Wilson and Cam are the 2 guys who I think do the most for their team in all facets offensively.
Yeah, I'm not taking anything away from Brady. And it's almost like I throw his name out in these type of conversations because of what he's working with. He's got Bill Belichick on the sidelines. None of these other candidates have that. That's a big X factor for him. So I don't think you're wrong.
Yeah.
I guess we're both right.
Professor
it's mid-season. We can both be right.
Professor X can be doing the stuff from the sideline with Cerebro. The X-Men still have to go into the battle.
Or the hoodie and the headphone over the hood. I don't know how that works. We can talk about that later. All right, baseball. Could Carlos Beltran's retirement be tied to the Yankees' managerial job? Well, on Monday, Beltran announced his retirement after 20 seasons in the big leagues, and in doing so, expressed his interest in managing someday down the road here. Now, first off, let's deal with Beltran, the player. Hall of Famer?
Yeah, I think he is a Hall of Famer. He did everything. He was up there in some statistical categories with the likes of Barry Bonds and Willie Mays and Alex Rodriguez all around, with homers, with runs scored, with stolen bases, and he was one of the best clutch performers of his generation.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. Hands down. This guy had 10 seasons of 20 home runs and 90-plus RBIs. 10 out of 20. He had a stretch where it's a shame he got injured. His time between Houston and with the Mets, he was just one of the most productive 5-2 players we've ever seen in baseball. He got derailed by some injuries, but clear-cut Hall of Famer, absolutely. Now, as a manager, he's been linked to the Yankees. Obviously played a couple seasons for the Yankees and Brian Cashman. Brian Cashman says that he's aware Beltran wants to manage down the road. Could he be the right fit, a rookie manager for the New York Yankees?
Very coy answer from Brian Cashman. Coy enough where I might even go as far to say Carlos Beltran will be the next manager of the New York Yankees.
Interesting.
He would deny it, wouldn't he, if there wasn't some interest there? And obviously he has great respect for not just the player, but his acumen as a player. And he said experience wouldn't matter that much. They're definitely looking for something different. what's more different than a guy fresh off the field into the dugout?
Yeah, there are some signs here. Initially, I thought personality-wise, I don't know if he's a good fit for New York. I don't know if he's a good fit for a manager. I never got the impression from talking with him or being around his teams that he was the leader of that clubhouse. But he had a quote that leads me to think like you're thinking right now. Beltran talked about analytics, and he said, you make moves based on data. If I told you there was all this data for your financial investments, would you use it? Of course you would. Same thing in baseball. Cashman is looking for an analytics guy. That was the issue with Joe Girardi. He wasn't completely on board with, merging that gap between the front office and the dugout. If Beltran is going in that direction, he may have already had these conversations with Brian Cashman.
Yeah, look, numbers don't tell you everything, but they're much better than what some bleacher creature thinks, right? Or is yelling out from the 6 train or whatever. Fantasy football season is hitting the home stretch. Speaking of numbers, who should you be scouring the waiver wire for this week? Here's the fantasy exec with the answers.
Hey, what's up? It's Corey Parson, the fantasy executive with your SI Now fantasy football pickups for week number 11. And let's start with Green Bay Packer running back Jamal Williams. I always tell fantasy owners to be careful where you go to look for fantasy production. The Packers running back position is not normally a place I look for running back help. But with Aaron Jones and Ty Montgomery both banged up, Williams will see more carries. If you pick up Williams, temper your expectations. Los Angeles running back Austin Eckler earned 33% of the Chargers snaps on offense in Week 10 and put up 26 fantasy points in PPR formats. If you're a Melvin Gordon fantasy owner, Eckler is a must-add. I still expect Melvin Gordon to lead the Charger backfield, but Eckler is a Gordon injury away from being in the RB1 conversation for the rest of the season. DC running back Sam Perine has been uninspiring to say the least in his rookie campaign, but with Rob Kelly hampered by injuries yet again, Perine is worth an add, but be very wary putting him in your starting lineups. If you need wide receiver help, look for Jacksonville Jaguar wide receiver Marquise Lee. In the last 4 weeks, Lee is wide receiver 16 in PPR scoring formats. Lee is the clear #1 option in the Jags passing attack. He has games of 10, 11, and 12 targets in the past month. If you need wide receiver help for your stretch run, Lee is a must-add in all formats. I'm Corey Parson, the fantasy executive, with your SI Now waiver wire ads for week number 11.
I'm with Basketball Hall of Famer Bernard King, also the author of Game Face, a lifetime of hard-earned lessons on and off the basketball court. Kristaps Porzingis passed you and everyone else for the most points through 10 games for a Knick ever. I think he has the talent, barring injury, to be the best player in Knicks franchise history. Would you agree with that?
I won't go that far yet. You talk about the legacy of Walt Frazier and Willis Reed and Earl Monroe and Patrick Ewing, so I won't go that far yet. But he's gotten off to a great start. Obviously, he's done a great deal of work during the offseason, and it shows. He's far more efficient than he was last year. But it's amazing to think, Robin, that a guy that's 7'3" can shoot the three-point shot beyond the arc, post up, block shots, run the floor. What's happened basically over the last 10, 12 years is European basketball has really changed the face of the NBA. The players overseas, they've played a more expanded type of game as far as perimeter shots and jump shooting and three-point shots than NBA players that grew up here in this country. And so you've seen the progression of that with a guy like Porzingis.
It's interesting, and I think you're spot on. Now, you mentioned Walt Frazier. He's been kind of critical of today's NBA. How would you compare the NBA now to when you played?
I don't think you can compare. There's different eras of basketball. When I first started playing with the New Jersey Nets in '77, the game was far more physical. It was more half-court oriented, dominated by the center position in the low post. And the game has transitioned and changed. And so with that change comes players that, with the skill sets like a Porzingis, and he's really a lone wolf by himself in that regard.
Yeah, he's become the man on the team. Another high-scoring Knicks forward like yourself was Carmelo Anthony. He's not there anymore. His new team, the Thunder, struggling. Do you think the Knicks are better off post-Melo?
I don't know that better off is a proper description. I think that they decided to make a change because they're a young team, and a young team needs to grow. And Melo was at a point in his career in terms of his experience and maturity. He needed to be playing with veteran players that would provide him an opportunity possibly win a championship. And he has that with regard to the Thunder. It's going to take time for that chemistry to develop.
Of course, you had the devastating knee injury, which you worked your way back from. I mean, are you happy with the way it all turned out?
Oh, absolutely. If you think about it, at least if I think about it, during the course of my career, Robin, I played against 51 Hall of Famers. I'll repeat that, 51 Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
Well, you have to really look at it based on different eras and different periods that I played. When I first entered the NBA, the standard was Dr. J. He was, in many ways, the greatest player on the planet Earth. And I had an opportunity to face him for 10 years. And as he transitioned on toward the latter part of his career, you had other players that emerged, like Alex English, one of the greats of the NBA. And then that transitioned on to other players, Adrian Dantley. And then came along Larry Bird, the young Larry Bird. And Larry Bird, for me, in terms of matchups, was the toughest player I had to play against because he had the ability to put the ball on the floor, shoot the three-point shot, pass off the dribble, and get the offensive rebounds. So he was very difficult to play against. That was my toughest matchup.
How do you think Larry Bird would do if you dropped him into the NBA right now?
Well, I can't think of Larry Bird's game. I think that if you take any great player, Larry Bird, Dr. J, Alex English, Adrian Dantley, myself included, great players adapt. They adapt their skill sets to the current trend of the league. And I did that throughout the entire course of my career, and any other great player would as well.
Now, one of the themes of your book is overcoming adversity. You talk about dealing with some emotional, mental health issues, substance abuse as well. Is that more difficult for an athlete because you guys are put on a pedestal and are more high profile?
Well, I don't know that it's more difficult for an athlete. I think it's, in general, difficult for people. Most people don't want to address any emotional issues that they possibly may have in life. They tend to hide it and push it underneath the rug, or they don't want to talk about it. I chose to have the general public at large self-discover who I am. And you get the chance to get to know Bernard.
Two quick ones for you. I know you were drafted and played at the beginning of your career with the Nets from Brooklyn, right?
That's right.
What do you make of the Brooklyn Nets and where they're at right now as a franchise?
Well, the Brooklyn Nets, they're going through a transitional period. They haven't really found their footing yet in Brooklyn. And I think that once they are able to establish some really true identity players in terms of star players that have the ability to play at that A level every single night, then you'll start to see more consistency with that franchise.
And circling back to the Knicks, obviously It's great to play at the Garden, but this was a team that many expected to be amongst the worst in the league and to possibly be tanking for a draft pick. Now they're on the upswing. Do you think there's a chance, or will the Knicks make the playoffs?
Well, you have to wait and see. I think, Hornacek, in terms of the coach, he's done a great job of changing the system. And he's changed the system to adapt to the personnel that he has. And consequently, you see a guy like Cantor who comes in and he's able to really be a dominant force around the low blocks and on the backboards. And then you take Porzingis, he's really adjusted the system to really cater to his offensive style of play and his skill sets. And consequently, the team is flourishing. And defensively, as long as they play strong defense and rebound, they're going to have an outstanding year, and there's no reason why they shouldn't make the playoffs.
Bernard King, Hall of Famer, author of Game Face. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Actor and comedian, podcaster, now author Michael Rapaport is here. The latest book. This book has balls, and you cover a lot of ground in this book. LeBron James, a letter to Tiger Woods,
yes,
a crush on gymnast Mary Lou Retton that,
yes,
quite frankly, I didn't see coming. But let's start here, and this is with some most current news before we get to those topics. And it is the NFL. And you see that Papa John's and the Pizza Man has said that he is losing profits because of some of the player social justice protests during the national anthem. Michael, some people think Jerry Jones is behind this because he's an investor in Papa John's. What do you think's going on?
I think it's insane what's going on. I think it's really a shame what's going on. Like, players, this isn't the 60s, this isn't the 50s. Athletes have seen Muhammad Ali, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Bill Russell, Carmelo, LeBron speak out. They saw Kaepernick. This isn't the old days where you like get in line. These guys are the stars. They're aware that they're the stars. It's like going to see a Broadway show and you're going to see, Laurence Olivier, and then a third stringer comes in there. They know that they're a Laurence Olivier. So I support the players standing up. It's a joke to me that Colin Kaepernick isn't in the NFL. Deshaun Watson just went down. He'd be great in that offense. But this whole thing with Papa John's, first of all, his pizza's trash. His pizza literally, I'd be better off eating a copy of my book, okay, than Papa John's pizza. So he should be worried about making his cardboard pizza taste a little better.
So Kaepernick, though, would never be invited by the Texans for a workout now that Bob McNair has said the inmates running the prison.
I know, and think about that. Jerry Jones and Bob McNair, these are old school, I'm a respect where I am, but these are old school dudes, and not in a good way. Not like in a good way. Like, they've both shown themselves, and, I think it's a shame. But the thing about it is that, people are like, just talk about sports. We're here at Sports Illustrated. I've had a subscription to Sports Illustrated since 1977. I can name off the top of my head, and I'll forget many, many times, when Sports Illustrated, the epicenter of sports in this country, as far as a magazine and now online here, and I'm here with you, Maggie, has had political sports issues on the cover of Sports Illustrated. Yeah. We wouldn't, Muhammad Ali would not be Muhammad Ali. He'd be just another good fighter if he didn't speak out against social issues and political issues. And it's very well documented in Sports Illustrated that Muhammad Ali, in the beginning, he wasn't the lovable figure that when he died. Bill Russell, everything from Boston Strong, Big Papi out there making that speech, that was like an uplifting thing. That was politics and sports. There's so many different issues where sports and politics have melded, and everybody's cool with reminiscing about them. But when we're in one right now, and so you can't do this, you can't do that, but no one has a problem with it when it's not making you uncomfortable.
Okay, but people were very uncomfortable with Muhammad Ali and with people of the civil rights era. Yeah. How do you think we're going to look back on the era we're going through right now?
I think that it'll be a learning experience, and I think that it should make people uncomfortable. I think that whether you're, painting your apartment from white to dark blue, or you're moving, or you're getting a new car, or your kids are changing school, change is uncomfortable. Change is frightening, and when it's a big social, political thing, it's going to be uncomfortable. And I think the sooner that people embrace the discomfort with it and are cool listening and sort of opening up and stop trying to go into this make America great again bull crap. We're not making America great again. We're not going backwards. We're not going into the 50s. We're not going into the 1700s. We got to go forward. And it's all a ruse, and I don't want to get politics because I'm so happy to be at Sports Illustrated. Again, subscription since 1977.
We appreciate you.
And I've paid.
Thank you.
I've paid since 1977.
Let's talk about something else here, because you address some very influential sports parents in your book.
Yes.
You talk both about Richard Williams,
Yes.
of course, the father of Venus and
Yes.
Serena, and also about LeVar Ball.
Yes.
And you feel very differently about these two.
Yes.
You love Richard Williams.
Yes.
You do not love LeVar Ball. Do you see them, though, as cut from the same cloth?
I do see them as cut from the same cloth, and like the book is trash talk, and it's ball breaking, and some is love, some is good old fashioned breaking balls, and Richard Williams, listen, we're talking about a sport that is clean cut white country club and basketball. And when Richard Williams came through, again, he didn't make people comfortable. He wasn't there to make people comfortable. And he had to fight through. He had to push through. And I get the LeVar Ball, like, here my son is. The reality of the LeVar Ball thing is, I think that it's setting the precedent, because next year you're going to have a draft class, and who's to say somebody doesn't have a cousin, a friend, a mom who says, well, LeVar Ball's making money. I'm going to start talking about everybody else's kids. And at what point does it stop being about the players and it starts to become about the parents? This isn't the AAU. This isn't high school. This isn't Sunday flag football. This is the NBA. I think it's been obnoxious. I think it's been over the top. And at a certain point, it needs to stop. And he's put an X on his kid's back. Every single thing he does, good, bad, turnover, point, crazy. It's crazy. And he's not even going to be the rookie of the year. He's not even going to be the rookie. He might not even be top 5 rookie of the year.
You're willing to call that right now. You don't think he's going to figure it out.
Kuzma's a better rookie than him.
No, that's true.
De'Aaron Fox, Dennis Smith Jr., Patrick Beverly, game one is like, I'm coming to shut you down, and you're going to be my son my entire career. It says something about what LeVar Ball has sort of the attention that he's brought to his son. I know his intentions are good and all that stuff. He's a great trash talker.
You have to respect that.
He's a great trash talker. My book, this book has balls. I am the MVP of talking trash. So as the MVP, I have to sort of, clap back.
You are one of the most famous Knicks fans. You did a documentary about it. I mean, you are embedded. But yet we saw you at the Barclays Center,
That's right.
decked out in Brooklyn Nets gear. Have you
I didn't have the shorts on, Maggie. I mean,
Sorry,
next
not
time
full.
I'm going to show up with the
Waist
shorts.
up.
Okay. Imagine if I was there with the full uniform.
Just put me in.
I got my ankles taped. That would look really nuts.
Yeah, if something happens to D'Angelo Russell, you can just pull Michael Rapaport right from the front row. Are you switching teams? Are you switching allegiances here?
I'm never going to be able to change my heart and my DNA. I'm a Knicks fan. I'm a lifelong Knicks fan. But the dysfunction of the team for years and years and years, and the chaos of the Knicks and the inconsistency of the Knicks, and the irony of the Charles Oakley incident. And I know Charles, and I know Charles isn't a saint, but the irony of the Charles Oakley incident took it out of me. So my ban on the Knicks is I ain't going back into Madison Square Garden until the ban on Charles Oakley is lifted, because he gave more than any Knick in the last 20 years has given. It doesn't mean I want the Knicks to do bad. I'm always going to want the Knicks to do good. I've always supported the Jersey Nets. I was happy when they came to Brooklyn. So there's plenty of other storylines, whether it's Lonzo, De'Aaron Fox, Dame Lillard and being underrated. I love the NBA. There's plenty of other things to watch. But the emotional dysfunction and the emotional abuse that we've taken as Knicks fans over and over and over, I can't do it anymore. I can't do it anymore. And just the irony that it was Oakley acting out. Every fan would be like, want to go up to Dolan, like, what the heck have you done to our team? The fact that it was Oakley live on ESPN was insane.
Another New York figure not as beloved as Charles Oakley is Alex Rodriguez. And now he's back in the news, Michael, because his relationship with Jennifer Lopez, they make it on the cover of Vanity Fair. We find out about the text messages. I think, honestly, we know too much. You had to put him on your dishonorable discharge of stick men list. But is he back in now?
No.
Because of J-Lo?
No, I give the first ever great stick men of all time. And this is not an irresponsible creep. These are men that have had a certain je ne sais quoi, great with the ladies, but up front, honest. Derek Jeter, fantastic run. George Clooney, great stick man. Yeah. Warren Beatty, an incredible run. The building is named after DiCaprio. Is the king of the world. He's the king of the planet, and he's the king of all stick men. A-Rod, I had to leave him off the list because, unfortunately, and no disrespect there, Alex, his numbers speak for themselves on the field, and his accomplishments with women off the field speak for themselves. But in my opinion, he may not get into Cooperstown because of the alleged steroid use, but you definitely don't make it into the Hall of Fame stickman list, because if you're using PEDs on the field, most likely you were using them off the field. I'm sorry, I had to do it. I had to be fair, and I had to be, dot my I's and cross my T's. I'm sorry, he's off the list. Dishonorable discharge. The numbers speak for themselves. The Vanity Fair cover, fantastic. J-Lo, I wish them all luck. I'm just saying, as far as one of the great stickmen of all time, I had to leave him off.
I don't know how familiar you are with some of the players in the World Series from this year. Two very prominent Jewish athletes playing in the World Series, and Alex Bregman and Jock Peterson. Okay, you talk about Dolph Schayes in the book, obviously a great player from the 1950s who was Jewish. His son Danny Schayes played in the 1990s. Recent history, though, who are some of your favorite Jewish athletes, and are you putting Amari Stoudemire on the list because of his love of Israel and his love of the Jewish faith?
Let me tell you something. I'm a Jewish man, okay, and I'm a failed Jewish athlete who had hoop dreams that turned into hoop nightmares. If Amari Stoudemire converted, we will take him. Okay, Julian Edelman, great New England Patriot. I believe he's half Jewish, or he considers himself sort of Jewish. We'll take him. We have nothing. Okay, the day of the great Jewish athlete, it's gone. That's fine. That's not what we do anymore. So if anybody,
why is it gone for us?
I don't know why it's gone. I mean, I just think genetically, like when you look at the prototype, Jew, like we all wind up, whether we want to or not, like Larry David, especially New York City Jews. We all wind up at some point like having a sort of a Larry David disposition. That Larry David disposition is not meant for high-level sports. Okay, so if Amari wants to consider himself Jew, fantastic. Julian Edelman, you're half Jewish, we'll take you as a full Jew. Okay, the UCLA quarterback,
Josh Rosen.
Come on, man. The Shabbat dinner anytime you want, man. I'm out in L.A.
What would it be like if Josh Rosen was a quarterback in New York?
Like nothing. It would be like Bill Bradley was when he was with the Knicks, or Linsanity, 24 hours, 365. Josh Rosen, if he does well in New York, it would be crazy. If an accomplished Jewish quarterback in New York, I don't know what I would do with myself. The people in New York, he wouldn't have to walk. He'd be carried up and down the streets.
Bar mitzvah the whole time.
It'd be okay, I guarantee you I will die in peace knowing that there will never be a Jewish tight end playing for any team, let alone they could play in the Canadian Football League. There'll never be like like Mark Bavaro, bruising Gronkowski sort of tight end playing. That's fine. We had a time. We had a good run. 40s, 50s, 60s, 30s, boxers, baseball players. We had a good time. Dolph Shays. But our time, is as real. Listen, how about this? If there's a Jewish athlete in the NBA slam dunk contest, I'll drop dead at the time. If he's just even participating, even if he has to bail out for an ankle injury, but just the fact that he gets invited to the NBA dunk contest, I drop dead right on the spot.
Last year, we interviewed Brian Scalabrine
yes.
at Media Day at the Big Three. Here's what he had to say.
About me? He's saying stuff about me, Scalabrine?
Like in his best day, and he grew up like wanting to be me. The problem is all the general fans think that I am him. That's a big issue for me. Like, there are levels to this red-headed game here, right? His level, my level. Now, if we're talking about producing, it's a different story. When we're talking about basketball, like, come on, like, do not mention both of our names in the same sentence any longer.
Wow.
Why do you talk to this person? Is a sick person. Scalabrine.
Is there a level to redheads, though? Is he right about that?
Yeah, but I'm at the higher up of the levels, and he's like a guy who's like always asking me for advice. Yeah, there's a levels to the redheaded thing. You know what's interesting? Scalabrine, he's always sort of taken for granted, like, he played in the NBA. But when you look at those arms, he's got no shoulders, no cut, and he always walks like you have no chest. It's incredible that he accomplished what he accomplished. Scal is my guy. I love that dude. He's funny. I had a great time spending time with him at the Big Three. He calls me all the time, always asking me for advice. He's like, did you listen to me during the Celtics game, during the Bucks? I'm like, I got a life, man. I got a life. Like, I'll listen to, like occasionally, but I'm not going to spend my life, giving you, the tip, tricks of the trade to help you.
He wants you to be a mentor to him. No.
It's not happening. It's not happening. Like, the fact that you guys give him airtime, you got to look at the credibility of Sports Illustrated. That guy's a crazy person. Brian Scalabrine's got, like, problems.